The countdown is on, but you're not alone. This is Countdown to College, your weekly guide from EducationQuest Foundation, here to help you plan, apply, and pay for college one step at a time. I'm your host, Gage, and joining us today is Andrew Hunzeker, Outreach Services Manager here at EducationQuest. Hi, Andrew. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Okay, so first of all, this episode I think is coming out a few days after 4th of July, so I hope everyone had a fun and safe Independence Day. But that actually leads me right to the topic for this episode, because if you're an incoming college freshman, your independence era when you need to start adulting is about to begin. So Andrew's going to help us break down kind of what that means and give us some tips to help that make that transition a little less overwhelming. So Andrew, let's dive in first because we want to make, this distinction pretty clear. What does it mean to have, you know, independent student status for financial aid? And then what does it mean to be, independent in the adulting sense in college?
Yeah, that's a good question because I do get that financial aid question quite a bit, which makes sense because that's what I do for a living.
Hmm.
But it can be a little confusing. So when you go into the FAFSA and you're doing your application for federal financial aid, it's going to ask you some dependency questions. And within those questions, you're going to say yes or no. Essentially, if you say yes to any of them, that makes you independent. So examples of these questions would be things like based on your age. So after the age of 24, you are considered an independent student for the FAFSA or for federal aid, I should say. Also, if you've ever been awarded the court, emancipated under legal guardianship other than your parents, that's the catch on that one. If you yourself are married or have children, other things would be like if you are currently actively serving in the armed forces. So it will go through and it'll ask you those questions. I would tell you, Gage, the majority of my quote traditional students, so my, high school seniors transitioning into college,
Hmm.
the majority of them are probably going to be considered dependent when it
Hmm.
comes to federal financial aid. And in that situation, that means that they are going to be required to provide parent information as they go through that process. And so I do get a lot of questions about that because I have scenarios where I have students that have been, living on their own for the last year after graduating from high school. In a standard definition sense, they would be independent.
Hmm.
But based on the federal regulations or the federal definition when it comes to financial aid, they are not. So I'm glad you asked that because, yeah, they are independent in so many ways. But when it comes to financial aid, they would still have to include their parent information.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, when we talk about like the adulting sense, that is kind of what I just mentioned. That is understanding that you now have bills to pay, that you
Hmm.
have additional responsibilities that you have to take on in order to make sure everything's done, correctly because you don't have your parents doing it for you.
Hmm.
And in most situations at colleges, your parents cannot do those things for you. You either have to do like a privacy release to allow them to contact the college on your behalf. They don't make it necessarily easy for your parents to assist with that because they want you to do that. This is
Hmm.
your next step into adulthood, so that's kind of how they view that.
Yeah, I'm glad we got this question out of the way first because I just remember I was very confused when I first got to college about independent status and dependent status. And that's definitely something too. If you feel like you're kind of in a gray area, like feel free to come into the one of our offices or give us a call, give us an email, and we'd be more than happy to help you out with that.
Definitely.
Now, Andrew, what are some of the biggest adjustments students experience during this first year away from home? Some students might be, 5 minutes away from their house. Some students might be states, miles away from their house.
Yeah. I think that probably the big one that I see the most or that I, have worked with is homesick.
Hmm.
Especially when you could be 2 hours away from where your parents are, and you could still easily get homesick. We're talking about a pretty significant life change. You are now, in a lot of ways, responsible for your own, you know, how would I want to phrase this? You're responsible for your own actions,
Hmm.
for your own outcome. So because of that, you don't, you have the support, but you don't necessarily have it right there at any given moment. You have to think for some of these things on your own. So I do see a lot of students get pretty homesick, especially that first semester. Fall is one of the hardest ones because it's cold, and we just all kind of associate home with fall because it's the cozy, warm feeling, and you have, your mom making you delicious, foods and soups and whatever. So that's the most common for sure. One of the other things, and I use weird terminology occasionally, but one of the things I feel is a big adjustment for a lot of these students is kind of understanding the bureaucracy of the world or the logistics that you're going to have to start working with. So many things have, checklists that you have to go through. There are things that in high school you didn't have to deal with checking your email on a daily basis.
Hmm.
Replying to your professors, some of those things, occasionally your parents would do some of that stuff. And now that you're in college, that's on you. You got to do some of that. My biggest thing, though, when it comes to adjustments, when it comes to going to college, is the advocacy. So, again, I use the weird words like advocacy, but to me, that's exactly what it is. When you go to
Hmm.
college, you have to advocate for yourself. A good example is, for example, let's say you had an IEP when you were in high school because you have some kind of a disability. Um, those IEPs don't translate necessarily to college because in high school, you keep those things to yourself. In college, you have to advocate for yourself to get the accommodations or, talk to your professor when you're falling behind on your classes. You have to be that advocate for yourself. And that is one of the hardest adjustments because prior to that, students had mom and dad to help them
Hmm.
with that. And so that one to me is the biggest one is that advocacy is just take some confidence and help yourself make sure that things are going the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah, that's been a really common theme this whole season, I feel like, is, not being afraid to ask for help and not being afraid to reach out if you need to. Because it's nothing against, some of these college professors have like 200 kids in their lecture hall. Like it's a lot of people. So you have to be the one to go up and introduce yourself and ask your questions if you need to. And it's something that will get easier over time too. It'll feel a little awkward, a little scary at first freshman year, but by my senior year, I was like walking into my professor's office, like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yep. Yep. And that's the best thing. That is the best thing you can do. And your professors actually prefer that. And they
Hmm.
get to know you more personally. And that can lead to so many great benefits networking, helping with jobs, helping find internships. So that advocacy piece ends up being more important than I think most people realize.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that leads kind of into my next question, actually, which is, what skills, one of them probably being advocacy, help students become more confident and successful as they gain independence.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, of course, advocacy is going to be one of the big main ones right there. But that kind of also falls into a lot of other categories like communication is going to be a big one. In college, your professors, the different departments at the college, like financial aid, admissions, they're going to reach out to the student via their portal or their email. If those students aren't watching that, they could potentially miss out on big things. Big things. I've had
Hmm.
students miss out on tens of thousands of dollars of scholarships because they didn't pay attention to their emails. So communication is going to be one of the biggest ones. Um, Time management. Gage. Time management was not my forte in college. I still struggle with time management. If you can learn good quality time management skills, that is going to set you up for your future in such a good way. So time management's a big one, getting your homework done on time, getting your studying in when it needs to be done. Um, Problem solving is going to be another big one, not just problem solving with your math homework, but problem solving when you have some kind of an obstacle come forward and you're like, oh, wait, they selected me for verification in financial aid.
Mhm.
That's a barrier. We understand that and we will help you with it, but you have to come to us. So the problem solving in that situation would be, okay, how do I get this verification to the financial aid? Do I need to reach out to EducationQuest, or do I need to reach out to my advisor, or do I need to, whatever the case may be? And then kind of one that is growing a lot more is that emotional resilience, being able to, which I also struggle with, not get overwhelmed, not get overstressed, not get overly anxious.
Mhm.
Easier said than done. Trust. Way easier said than done. But knowing with that, your college very well probably has counselors or therapists that
Mhm.
you can go work with. So if you're having a hard time, don't let that overwhelm you. And again, it always comes back to that advocacy, you know, and if you need somebody in your corner to help you get that advocacy, Education Quest is here for you. Your advisors are here for you. You know, financial aid, your college is also going to guide you through this process. So those are kind of the big ones, when you're becoming an adult, becoming
Yeah.
independent.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later, but about the resources and support systems and stuff like that. But especially the counseling centers, and it depends on the college, but on many campuses, you typically get at least one or two free appointments. So like, go use those if you
Mhm.
really need them,
Yes.
or even if you don't, maybe you just want to go chat with somebody. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, genuinely. I mean, sometimes you just need that,
Yeah.
And when you're in a new scenario and maybe you don't have your buddies with you, it's hard. You
Hmm.
you don't have that person, and we have FaceTime, we have our cell phones, we have social media, but it's different than sitting down with somebody, especially a professional who knows how to like
Hmm.
work you through that. Shout out to my therapist because she's been fantastic. So you just sometimes need that other perspective. And you're right. Almost all colleges now have it because that's such a strong focus in
Hmm.
colleges these days.
Andrew, what are some important responsibilities that students are, often managing on their own for the first time? We've mentioned a few already, but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so obviously one of the responsibilities is going to be that advocacy. You're going to get sick of hearing me say that word. But that is going to be one. Your homework, that that is going to be a pretty strong responsibility while you're in college, making sure that you're keeping up with your grades, not just for yourself, but for your scholarships, for your potential career opportunities. Like there's so many reasons why you want to stay on top of your classes. Lastly, one of the bigger responsibilities that is kind of a learning curve is the financial piece. And we're not just talking financial aid at the college. We're talking paying for your gas.
Mhm.
We're talking about, you need a new pair of shoes because you only brought one and for some reason you grew through them or whatever. Whatever the case may be, you become more responsible with your own finances. And so making sure that you keep an eye on that, however that may look for you, but that's going to be a learning curve because your parents probably were paying for a lot of stuff and they probably still could be while you're in college, but you're slowly taking on more of those responsibilities. And by the time you get out of college, you will have a lot more financial responsibilities. So that's one. We used to talk back in the day about financial literacy, and it's a fancy terminology, but just understanding how finances work, that is really important. And a lot of colleges now work that into their like freshman seminars,
Mhm.
freshman class, or whatever that is that they do that first year at their college. Every college is different what they call it. They do talk about that financial literacy piece just to help them get more confidence in understanding, what interest is and
Hmm.
what happens if you go into default on a payment. So that's going to be a big one.
Yeah, I know a big one for me was laundry. Like thankfully so this is what I did, and I suggest everybody else do this. I think it was my junior year or my senior year of high school. I started having my mom teach me how to do my laundry, and I just started doing it on my own because I was like, I know that when I get to college, I'm gonna have to know how to do all this and not stain all my clothes red or something because
Yep.
she's not gonna be anywhere near me, so I'm gonna have to do this on my own. But
Which is funny because I also had to, I didn't try and learn before I left high school. And it was oh my gosh, I don't know how to wash my own clothes. Thankfully, one of my buddies was like, kind of took me under her wing and she's like, I'm going to show you how to do your laundry, which is quite embarrassing when you're a freshman in college and your friend, who's the lady, is helping you wash your boxers and stuff like
yeah.
that. But that was one thing that I did. But here's the good part. I found out that it was my mom who was shrinking most of my shirts. So I was able to start
Um,
making sure my clothes were not shrinking.
that's so funny. Now, Andrew, how can students create healthy routines, while balancing class, work, and their social life? It can be overwhelming, especially at first.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think the best thing, and technology has helped with this, but I think the best and first thing is to start working on some kind of schedule, planner, your phone, like not just your classes, but when do you anticipate that you want to study?
Hmm.
I've been working with some students this year. Actually, it's my nephew. I've been working with my nephew who's going to be a freshman in college, and he's like, I want to be done with my homework every Friday night so that way I can have my weekend. And that is doable, but you need to create a schedule so that you make sure that all of those things are done. So your online classes won't maybe require homework due until Sunday. So what day are you going to be doing that class to make
Hmm.
sure you meet that deadline? So scheduling and planning, that's going to be without a doubt one of the biggest things that you would want to focus on. But another one would be just kind of narrowing in on different target goals or objectives that you might have in order to base what that schedule might look like. Or, and when I say schedule, that's pretty vague. I mean, that could be what classes do you need to take next semester? When should you be doing your internship? Things like that. So, those are kind of the big ones that I would say a student would need to kind of put together to be more successful.
So we talked, I know, already a little bit about the financial literacy piece of this all, but I do want to get just a little bit more specific. So what are some, smart financial habits that college students should start building early?
Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking to myself, what would my mother have said in this situation? And she would have been like, "You need to balance your checkbook." Nobody does that these days.
No.
But instead, we budget. So budgeting is going to be something that I would definitely recommend. That could be something as easy as, a list in your phone notes of, how much am I spending in these things, just kind of tracking where your expenses are coming out, what things may be coming due. That's budgeting is going to be a big one. It's also kind of a learning curve because as you become more independent, you find out some of the little quirks that different payments may have or things like that, or your card may be compromised and then you miss a payment. And
Hmm.
so there are a lot of other factors that go in with that, but I do truly feel, and this is from my own experience as well, sitting down and trying to put like a monthly budget together just to give you a visual idea of what that looks like, and then keeping an eye on like your online banking just to make sure you are being active in what's going on with your finances. On a college level, the financial aid department is going to guide you through that process. So just keeping a close eye on your communications from them, aka your emails, making sure you're watching those. But more so on a personal level, that budgeting is going to be important just to make it less burdensome as you take on those financial responsibilities.
I know it sounds so old fashioned, but I use like an Excel spreadsheet for my budget,
Me
which,
too.
listen, y'all, just stay tuned, stay tuned. It's so helpful. What I do is, so I have like my calendar of bills on the left side of like, here's this, when this is due, when this is due, when this is due. And then I have like a section for each of my paychecks basically. And so I'll have like the amount of the paycheck and then the bills that are to come out in that 2 week period, and then a total with how much I'll have left. And like I said, I know it sounds old fashioned, but when I started doing this, I finally started not like having a dollar left in my account every single paycheck.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I did the same thing, Gage. I was trying to figure out why I was so short
yeah.
at the end of every, month. And I finally sat down in Excel. I love Excel personally. It can be really fun. But that's the nerd in me. So I sat down and you're right. Without that, I wouldn't have realized some of the auto payments that I had
Yeah.
set up, and depending on when your paychecks come in, it also is important. Are you getting them at the first of the month, at the end of the month, or are you getting twice a month?
Hmm.
So yeah, budgeting is going to be a big one. And again, in your freshman seminar classes or whatever they might call them at your college, they're probably going to help you build a budget. And the likelihood that you may have to take some kind of finance class is strong as well. And you'll be learning those traits from that
Hmm.
as well.
Andrew, how can students become more confident in making decisions on their own during college?
You know, this was a tough question that when you sent it, because I was thinking, how do you answer that? I think the the way that students become more confident when it comes to these decision making is by trial and error.
Hmm.
I really think that just stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing like the advocacy for yourself, you will find the first time you do it might be a little nerve-wracking, but once you do it and you find out what a huge benefit it is to you, you gain that confidence. I
Hmm.
will tell you, college is where I built almost all of my confidence. High school was rough for me. College was my jam. And because of that, I gained a lot of confidence out of that. My public speaking came from all the different organizations and things that I was included in college. Um, Effectively communicating with adults, that was a big one as well. So there are a lot of things that you will just have to kind of step outside your comfort zone to try it. But once you do, you will most likely find out that it's a lot easier than you think, and that will build your confidence up.
Hmm.
And so that was a tough question for me to figure out, but that was how it worked for me is I just had to just step outside my comfort zone, give it a try, do what I needed to do, and then I found, oh, it's not as scary as I thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that though, because it is kind of like, I mean, not to sound super like therapy or anything, but like it is kind of like exposure therapy almost. Like you kind of need to, the more times you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with it. There'll be less, you're like, what if this happened? What if this happened? What if this happened? You'll stop thinking about that and you'll just be like, oh, these are new people and we all share the same interests and that's really cool and I want to get to know them more.
Yeah, yeah. And you'll find people actually care.
Hmm.
We so often think that people don't care out there, but you're in college, they do. They do.
Hmm.
And so when you need something done, if you step outside of yourself, you're going to find people are there to help out. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Andrew, what resources or support systems? I mean, we mentioned, like the counseling center before,
Mhm.
should students take advantage of during college?
There are so many. So many. And there are some resources that are going to be available to only specific students. Those are going to be programs like Buffett Learning Communities for Buffett Scholars. That's going to be things like TRIO programs are going to be a great resource for students, but those are going to be specifically for students who are first generation, single parents, potentially military veterans. There is a TRIO program for that as well. Those are really fantastic programs, but specific to who can access them. Um, every college has tutoring centers, writing labs, math centers, all those different things to assist you with kind of the academic side. But you're also going to have your academic advisor. You're going to have other advisors on campus that you can go to for other, specific subjects if need be. And then, like we had already talked about, your counseling or therapy options on campus as well. There's a lot. I will tell you though, Gage, and we've talked about this already on this episode, but speaking to your professor, to me, is one of the best things you can do
Mm-hmm.
as a resource. If you are falling behind in a class, go up to your professor, go up to the TA, the teacher assistant, or the PA, the professor assistant, go up to whoever's in charge of that class and advocate for yourself. So then that way they help you through that. I am not a mathematician. I had to go to the professor when it came to my college algebra class. And she was fantastic. And
Mm-hmm.
she ended up providing me extra tutoring once a week. And my grade bumped up to 2 letters. I mean, so I ended up with a B, which was way better than a D.
Yeah.
So that is without a doubt the one thing that I will always really stress to students when I talk to them is if you fall behind in a class, go talk to your professor.
Mm-hmm.
If your professor is unwilling to talk to you or they're too busy, talk to the TA or the PA. If they're busy, talk to your advisor. If they're busy, go talk to admissions. There are always going to be people who can guide you through the bureaucracy of the college,
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of help you make sure that you are accessing all those resources. And of course, EducationQuest, we're a pretty big resource as well. And you can always reach out to us, email or phone or whatever the case may be. Just if you see me at Target, you can ask me these questions. I just want to make sure students know that there are so many different resources. Sometimes it's hard to find them, but there are a lot of us out there that can guide you and help you find what resources you need.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, doubling down on the whole, making that connection with your professor thing because, and I feel like sometimes people don't talk about it, but I only really knew about it because I worked in a career services center. But if you make a connection with your professor, there's a high likelihood that even years after your graduation, that connection can come back and lead to a job opportunity or lead to another connection with somebody else that can lead to a job opportunity. You just never know where things go. So you want to introduce yourself, you want to make a good impression. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. 100%.
Andrew, how can challenges during college help students grow personally and professionally? We talked about, making sure you step outside your comfort zone every once in a while.
Yeah. So the challenges that you overcome in college are going to be a variety and of all different kinds. They're going to help you when it comes to your grades. They're going to help you when it comes to your personal life, just becoming more confident, becoming more educated, more knowledgeable on the things that you're experiencing in the world. That's a big one for me is the learning curve in college is not just the classes, it's the experience that you're getting at the same time. You learn so much from that, and there are challenges that come with that, but those challenges build you into becoming a stronger, more hireable person when it comes time to go out and get a job. It just, so many of these factors kind of culminate into making you just a more fully rounded person, and make you better when it comes to getting out there and getting into society like the rest of us. So they are challenges, yes, but they are good in the long run.
Yeah. Okay, Andrew, I only have just one final question for you. And that is, what advice would you give students who are entering this new stage of independence and adulthood?
Yeah. Embrace the change. That is, without a doubt, the best thing I can tell a student is to allow yourself to experience these changes. They can be scary coming from a person who it hasn't made it very far from my own hometown, very far from my own house that I grew up in, which is now across the street. Change is hard, but college is the perfect time to just embrace it and roll with it because it is going to build you into being such a stronger person. And it just, so many benefits come out of it. So that's a big one. The other one is as you prepare to go to college, or if you're already in college, trying to put together some kind of a support team. Who is it that you are going to call if you are having a mental breakdown? Who do you need? Somebody in person? Do you need somebody that is going to call you, FaceTime you? Who is that person going to be? Thinking about location, thinking about those kinds of things. And if that's not specifically family, that's okay. Because the good thing about college is they have support for you there too. So just kind of knowing that there is a support team available for you by default, but also building your own support and knowing who to reach out to. Those are going to be, and that kind of just dives back into the understanding what resources are available for you or finding those resources. So you may not know what's out there, but that's okay. Advocate for yourself. Go ask people, ask your professor, ask your advisor, ask us at EducationQuest. You know, we all want you to be successful in college because that only makes our world a better place. So come to us, reach out if you ever need additional assistance.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that wraps us up. Thank you again, Andrew, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Gage. This is great.
And to our audience, if you ever need help with anything college related, like we've mentioned multiple times throughout this episode, you can contact an Education Quest office near you for free help. Even if you're, I don't know, maybe you don't like to come in person, feel free to send us an email. We have online appointments, so much available for you to use. You can find our contact information or schedule an appointment on educationquest.org. While you are there, make sure you sign up for the weekly Countdown to College email that's filled with all sorts of college tips and tricks. And finally, just help us get this message out to as many students and families as possible by subscribing to this podcast on your favorite platform and hitting the like button on this episode. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.